rolling right through. Moving on to the next first impressions. First impressions timestamp. Third video timestamp. I'm probably going to have to pee after this one timestamp. Alrighty, let's get going. Unnecessary cheese knife timestamp. Not even unboxing anything right now. Foundations of Rome, first impressions. What I think about Foundations of Rome is not mattering right now because I need to do an intro. Hi, I'm Devin, your friendly neighborhood board gamer, and this is Devin Talks Tabletop, the YouTube channel where the games are made up. What I say doesn't matter. And now I can start talking about Foundations of Rome. Foundations of Rome, which I'm going to talk about, is a polyomino city building game where players are both competing for the highest population, competing for the most victory points, and building not only for the sake of what enhances their city building plans, but also what responds well to the city building plans of other players. And what I mean by that is this is a game where the polyomino pieces, which Foundations of Rome, let's get done with the qualification that I'm going to make. It is insanely overproduced, and I love it. I think that it's unnecessary. This game could be done with just cardboard polyomino pieces. It wouldn't be as effective, but it could be done. This could be a $45, $50 game, no questions about it. However, the way that it is done is, I think, brilliant and massively accessible to players because it's done in a huge box and the player trays come out and they're immediately ready for play. You take them off, you take off the little shield for the plot markers or the lot markers, and then after you have the lot markers and the main shield off, you've just got this big tray of plastic pieces. But on each piece is the valuation of what it gives, whether the direct value of it or the adjacent scoring that it will do based off of other players. It's in the color of your player team, of your player color. The only thing I'll say is that it's not super color blind friendly because there's nothing other than the color and the symbol. There's no way for you to deduce whose it is if you're colorblind. However, in regards to the most amount of people that would already be okay with that, it is very accessible because those huge pieces have what they are. They go on the board, and when they're off the board, what they score and what they are is written in the inset place where it sits. And you can look at a glance on your board and see what's off of it and is on the main player board and off of your player mat or your player tray. It gives you a lot of information at ease, and it very quickly allows you to see what you need to build. Your lot markers, which stay at the top, whenever they're not there, you know that they're all out on the board. And if they're all out on the board, you have to place buildings. You can't buy new deeds. All of that to say, it's overproduced, but it's done in a way that makes the game so easy to play. And I mean thoroughly easy to play because you just take out the trays and it's ready to go. The only setup you have to do is get all of the deeds and shuffle them up and divide them into the 3 eras. That's really it. After that, you can start the game, get your starting deeds out there, put your starting lot markers out, and go. It is very quick to play, which is impressive for a game that seems quite large. I think that when a game does organization and production right, it can actually enhance gameplay, and I think that Foundations of Rome is a perfect example of when that works. There are expansions and other modifications or modules that you can add in and change up the gameplay, but the base gameplay itself is this. You have lot markers, you have a gridded city space, and with those lot markers, you are marking the deeds that you own. When you want to, you can build 1 square, 2 square, 3 square, 1 square, 2 square, 3 square, and 4 square buildings throughout, only on places that have your lot markers as well. There are buildings that give you population, Population is scored at the end of each of the 3 eras, and whoever has the most gets bonus points, but it gives you points. You can put out buildings that give you coins. Coins enhance your income turns. Whenever it comes around to you, you have 3 options. You can take income, which is to get 5 coins plus whatever coin buildings you have out. You can buy a deed marker using the money you've gained from your income. You can buy a deed that's for sale out in that particular era at whatever valuation it's slotted in, either 2, 3, 4, 6, 8, or 10. And then the other option you have available to you is that when you have lot markers out there that you could turn in for a building, you take those lot markers back, you put out whatever building configuration matches the amount of lot markers you took, and decide which one you want it to be. It could, again, be population, or it could be coin-based, or it could be a civic or governmental building, and those are the ones that score based off of the buildings that are adjacent to it. That's where I think some of the biggest decision space comes in, along with one other mechanic, which I'll mention in a second. As the board state changes, like if somebody puts out a large population building, you could do a civic building right next to it that scores based off of the amount of population that's adjacent to it, which could be this building or this building and even more buildings that are right next to it over the course of the game. You could have one lot marker that doesn't get you a big building at all, but it could be surrounded by 3 different players who have income buildings. And so you could do one that gives you victory points based off of however many coins are around you. So that adjacency is very important. But the other mechanic, other than adjacency scoring, that I think is really clever is that your buildings can always be replaced by larger buildings, not buildings of the same size, but buildings that are larger. So your level 1 buildings that are just one cubic space, those can be replaced by, say you had a 1 building and then you had a lot marker right here. You could replace those 2 things with one 2 square building. So you might replace a coin and a lot marker with a space that gets you more coins. Or you might replace that 1 building and a lot marker with a double population spot. The reason why that's important is because not only does it give you as the player agency to decide what buildings you want where, it allows you to adjust to what other players are doing. Say I have a building that provides income, and then I have a building that scores adjacent points for population. If I could have those 2 buildings, they're maybe not doing a lot for me, but then lo and behold, you could have all of the other players build around you, and they could all build civic buildings or governmental buildings. And then what you could do is you could replace those 2 single buildings with one larger 2-space building that scores you 3 points per adjacent civic building, which could be 9, 12, 15 points depending on how it's set up on the board. So that is a much more valuable switch, and also it adjusts to the strategy of other players. On the reverse side of that, say you've got a massive 4 population building that you've got set up, and then other players have small buildings that score based off of population. If you have your lot markers in the right spot, you could change out that building with something that gives you coins or something that is a civic building. And what that does is it gives you a new building, a bigger building that may be valuable to you at the time, but it also renders obsolete all of those buildings that the other players had and forces them to either change out their strategy or leave buildings there that aren't usable anymore. Because you can only upgrade buildings with larger buildings. So if there is either no larger building that could be swapped out, or if there's no other space because they don't have the correct lot markers around them, then you've locked them out of points and switched up your strategy and improved only you and not anybody else. So this combination of the lots that you choose to pay for, the buildings that you choose to put out, and how you adapt to the other players, it makes a very interesting decision space. I mean, we're talking about just the base game. I'm not talking about any of the expansions because I haven't played the expansions. I haven't played with the decrees that give you additional things to buy instead of deeds. I haven't played with the monuments. All of this is just base game Foundations of Rome. I think it's very clever. And because setup is quick, you can play this game in 45 minutes to an hour. It plays very fast, but is satisfying the whole way. And the 2 times I've played, I've won both times, but I've played completely different each time. The first time I highly prioritized using the civic buildings that got me adjacency scoring. That was in a 4-player game. And then in the next game, I played a 3-player game, but I really just focused on building a lot of a lot of income buildings, getting a lot of coins, and then trying to buy as many properties as possible to box other people out of building upgrades, and then to push forward my population and a few other opportunities that I wanted throughout the game. So I played those completely different. I was really more income and population focused in the 3-player game, but I was civic building and adjacency scoring in the 4-player game. And both of those worked just depending on how the game went. And that's just the base game. So there's quite a bit of variation, I think, in the strategy that you can choose. And then if you start to tire of that, throw in some of the extra stuff. You've got other things that you can add into the game just in the base game that are other variants or modules. And then if you really like it, you can go after the expansion stuff. But I thought it was a very impressive game that I think that there are definite arguments for why the production of it is not necessary. But I do think that the presence of that high production level has actually made the game more accessible to play, more easy to finish, and then also maybe more enduring on your shelf as a game because of those factors. I think because it's easy to play, because it's easy to set up, that means it's going to hit the table more. And if it's going to hit the table more, it may start beating out other polyomino games that, I'm thinking of stuff like Feast for Odin. I have a foam core insert for Feast for Odin, and it is still a lot of pieces. It's a lot of pieces. And so when you have games like that have a ton of components, if the components aren't as well organized or if they take a lot of effort, it makes setup longer and it makes the gameplay less frequent. And so I think that it was the right decision for Foundations of Rome. I do think that the price point prices out people who would really enjoy the game. So maybe down the road they'll come out with a non-excessive miniature plastic version of the game. Maybe they'll come out with a, Foundations of Rome light in terms of the production, because it does limit who all can get the game because of the price point. But I really do think it's a good one. I was again impressed with it, really enjoyed it. I knew that people have been buzzing about it. They're doing the second Kickstarter. Man, I'm just spitting all over the place today. Spit, 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 spit. All of that to say, I really enjoyed it. I think it's got a lot to it. I know that there are caveats of why people might not like it or might not be able to afford it, but what it does and why it does it, I think actually speaks to some of the strengths of the game. I think how it's produced and how it works makes a lot of sense. So hats off to Arcane Wonders. I was really impressed with this one. And I can't wait to play again. I want to check it out with the variants, though. I want to try the other cards that can go in and mix things up alongside the deeds. All right, that's it. That's another one.